watched someone almost lose a client over a spreadsheet. I also watched her keep her job over it. Not because the spreadsheet got fixed, but because of something her manager said about 90 seconds later in a hallway in a voice nobody else heard. Out of everything I saw in my HR years, those 90 seconds are the things I still think about. Welcome back to the relationship ironies of the world we live in. This is the architecture of work, the segment where we take apart the rules that run our workplace without ever getting written down anywhere and look at what's actually holding them up. Call her Sasha. Not her real name, not one specific person either, if I'm honest. She's someone I keep meeting in different bodies at different companies with different job titles. But the shape of her is always the same. So at some point, I stopped tracking which details belong to which person and started thinking of her as one woman I've been following for years. Sasha was a senior analyst at a mid-sized company. 6 years there. The kind of employee a manager describes, if you ask him directly, as one of my best. Reliable. Never the one causing problems. The one you can hand something to on a Thursday afternoon and stop thinking about it. She was also, at the time I'm describing, about 14 months into a marriage that hadn't broken exactly. Nothing had happened. There was no affair, no blow-up fight, nothing you could point to. It had just gone quiet. Two people who used to talk about their days now traded logistics about the dog and the mortgage and said goodnight facing away from each other. If you had asked Sasha what was wrong, she'd have struggled to answer you because nothing was wrong in any way she could name. It was just further away than it used to be. Nobody at work knew any of this. Why would they? It wasn't the kind of thing you put in a status update. Then, on a normal Tuesday, Sasha missed something. Her team was finalizing numbers for a client presentation, the kind that had been through 4 rounds of review already. And in the version that went out, a figure was wrong. Not catastrophic, but wrong in a specific way that makes a client ask in front of everyone in the call whether anyone actually checked this. I want you to sit in that moment for a second, because I think most of us know it from one side or the other. The silence on the call, the manager's face, the particular kind of quiet that happens when 12 people are all pretending to look at their screens. In most places I've worked or coached inside of, this is usually what happens next. The manager says something short and professional on the call to move things along. Then later, privately, there's a version of a conversation that is really a performance review disguised as a conversation. Some version of, this can't happen again. The employee nods, says it won't, goes back to her desk, and something in her closes a door that doesn't open again for a long time. She keeps doing the job. She stops bringing anything to it beyond the job. That's not what happened here. Sasha's manager, I'll call him Leo, didn't say anything on the call beyond what was needed to keep the meeting. Afterwards, he didn't call Sasha into an office. He found her in the hallway near the printer, maybe 20 minutes later. And what he said was not, this can't happen again. What he said was closer to, That one's on both of us. I should have caught it in the review too, given how stacked this week's been for you. And then, not as a segue into anything, just as a question sitting on its own. How are you doing actually? Not the project, you. Sasha didn't say much. I don't actually know what she said because I wasn't the one standing there. This part was relayed to me later by Leo, not by her. She said something like, I'm okay, just a lot going on. And Leo didn't push past that. He just said, okay, and that if anything needed to shift that week, to tell him. Then they both went back to their desks and the workday continued exactly as workdays do. I want to be honest with you about something. I don't know if that conversation fixed anything for Sasha. I don't think it did. Not in a tidy way. Her marriage didn't repair itself because her manager asked how she was doing. That's not how any of this works. And I'm suspicious of any story that tells you it is. What I know is smaller than that. And maybe more useful because of how small it is. Sasha came back to the next meeting. She didn't go quiet the way people go quiet when a door has closed. Leo told me months later, almost as an aside, that it was one of maybe 3 moments that whole year where someone had asked her a question about her that wasn't really about output. That's the whole story. There's no scene where Sasha has a realization and everything reorganizes itself. I don't actually know what happened to her marriage. I'm not sure it's mine to know. What I keep coming back to isn't her, it's Leo. And the 90 seconds, and the fact that what Leo did is not a personality trait. There's a name for what Leo gave Sasha in the hallway: psychological safety. It's turned into one of those phrases that show up on a slide in a leadership deck and stops meaning anything by the third bullet point. But it's simpler than that and smaller than that. It just means a person can tell you the truth about a mistake, about a hard week, about something they've missed without it costing them their job, their reputation, or how you see them afterwards. That's the whole definition. Sasha didn't get that from a training module. She got it from a 90 seconds in a hallway, offered at the worst possible moment to offer it, because that's usually where this conversation goes wrong. When people hear a story like this, the instinct is to say, Leo must be an emotionally intelligent person, a natural, someone with a gift for this. And maybe there's some truth in that. But I've sat across from a lot of Leos over the years in coaching rooms, in HR reviews, in leadership offsites. And what I have noticed is that the ones who handle that hallway moment well almost never got there by instinct alone. Somewhere, someone taught them the difference between managing the work and managing the person doing the work. Somebody showed them what it actually sounds like to name a mistake without also naming a person's worth in the same breath. That's a skill, which means it's teachable. It's also learnable, and it's also, maybe most importantly, forgettable if nobody keeps practicing. Most managers I've worked with weren't handed a team because they were good at this. They were handed a team because they were good at something else entirely, and then left to improvise the relational part on the fly, usually under the worst possible conditions, which is exactly when a mistake happens and clients on the phone. This is the exact thing I build the program I run for managers around. Not communication skills in the abstract, not a values poster in the break room. 1 month of it is built entirely around this psychological safety after a mistake, specifically the 90 seconds after something goes wrong. And what a manager says or doesn't say in them, it's practiced, not just discussed. Because knowing this in theory and doing it in a hallway with a client still on hold are two very different muscles. But I want to say something about the rest of the room too. Because I think it matters just as much and gets talked about a lot less. Say, Leo goes through a year of learning to do this well. Say, Leo gets genuinely good at it. If nobody else on that team has any shared language for what just happened, Leo is now fluent in something the rest of the team doesn't speak. The gap doesn't close things, it just moves them somewhere else. So, alongside the program for managers, there's a second piece, free for everyone else in the building for as long as we are working together. It's called the blueprint. And it's really just 2 small things a month, plus 1 live call, so that the rest of the team isn't left guessing at what their manager just started doing differently. The shift can't only live in one person at the top of the org chart. It has to be something the whole room is at least somewhat fluent in, or it doesn't hold. I still don't know what happened to Sasha's marriage. I think about that sometimes, that I got to know the outcome of 190-second hallway conversation and never got to know the outcome of the thing that actually mattered to her most. Maybe that's the honest ending. We don't get to know most of what we set in motion for other people. All we get to choose is what we do in the 90 seconds we are actually there for. That's this week's Architecture of Work. If any of this sounds like your Tuesday or like someone on your team, the blueprint is linked in the show notes. It's free and it's built for exactly this. So if you think your team could use the same language, invite them in. Not just for you, for whoever's managing you and whoever you are managing to. If this episode landed for you, send it to the person it made you think of. And if you haven't followed the show yet, do that too. It's the only reason these conversations keep finding the people who actually need them. I'll be back next week.